A lot of people will think fearing the Lord is an Old Testament concept and that grace is a New Testament concept. Fear the Lord is actually a very New Testament concept. There's a lot of verses that will say,
fear not.
But yet, we're told many times to fear the Lord.
Well, you think about like John, I would say when Jesus was here on earth, it was his best friend. But when John saw Jesus in heaven, he fell on his face.
Once we actually realize that there is a supreme being, God in the universe, and he is directing my life, and he can any minute in my life, I'm not in control of that.
If we understand what the fear of the Lord is, it could change our lives, honestly.
I'm Chuck Tate, and here at Fellowship of Believers, we encourage families, strengthen marriages, and edify the body of Christ.
I'm Larry Grimm. We also promote biblical doctrine in a fun and engaging way.
And I'm Sarah, and if it's Christian, we're talking about it.
This is the Mike Charleston Show. Yeah, all right, guys. Well, welcome to the Mike Charleston Show. We got everyone is here. We got Larry and Sarah and Chuck's all with us. So everyone is here and accounted for.
Yep.
That's right.
So let's go ahead and get this show on the road. So this episode, this show, I guess we'll call it, the show. The name of the title. I don't know what the title is, but we're going to be talking about an issue that is a paradox. It's one of those paradoxes in the Bible, and it's bizarre. But I will also say this, that the more I studied this, I think this was my favorite one to prepare for.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just because it's the more I learned about it, the more I was getting excited about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, this is actually really good.
I can understand that.
Yeah. So I was kind of surprised because this is just one of those issues that you kind of know about, but until you actually dig deep into it, you're like, wow, I didn't realize exactly how much that means, or how good it is for us. And so anyway, what are we talking about? What's the paradox?
It's
No, it's not money. No, it's not the paradox. The paradox is fear of the Lord. Yeah. So that is the paradox. And why do I say it's a paradox? Is because there's a lot of verses that will say,
Fear not.
Yeah, fear not, or love casts out fear.
Right.
Yeah.
God hasn't given us a spirit of fear.
Right. Mm-hmm. He hasn't given us, but yet we're told many times to fear the Lord. So fear God. Yeah. And I don't know how many times we tried counting up.
It was over 200 when you look up.
I thought it was over 300 with all the
It might be, because I realized every time I looked, I'm like, oh, I didn't get that one. Yeah. So that's a bunch.
Well, because there is, especially when you're searching King James, it's like feared, fearest, feareth,
fears God, fear Him, fear His name, fear Thy name,
right?
Fear, like it's,
you don't want to just look up fear because there's a lot of fear too in the Bible. So that it is a paradox. On one hand, we are not to fear, and then on the other hand, we are to fear. But it's really more of the object of what we're to fear, and we'll get into that here. So that is the kind of the paradox that we are, and I think this is one of the issues that America specifically does not fear God that much.
No.
And so I think this is a pertinent issue that if we understand what the fear of the Lord is, it could change our lives, honestly. So, this was an issue that I told Sarah, I'm like, the more I'm reading, the more I'm looking at it, it's too much. Like, I don't know if we can do this in the next half hour. Like we got to do 2 shows. Don't worry, Chuck, we're not doing 2 shows.
We're not doing it?
No, but I could. Like, this is a very fascinating topic. So anyway, just curious, like when you think of the fear of the Lord, what do you think of right away? What comes to your mind?
Oh, wow. What comes to my mind? Let me start with what I was taught.
Okay.
I use the term loosely.
Sure.
Growing up, what I was made to believe growing up is that the fear of God is a reverential awe.
Okay, sure.
I don't necessarily agree with that as much as I did growing up.
Okay.
I think it takes away from some of the aspect of what I think fear of God is today.
Interesting. I'm curious now. So
we'll see.
Okay. What about you, Larry?
I kind of would chalk that it was something of awe and respect.
Right.
That's what it meant. But yeah, I think it's also fear. You need to fear God because He is the one He's the creator. He
is the supreme being in all of the universe.
Right. Well, that's what it kind of, you see some of these like modern preachers and stuff, and they sort of, it's like, oh, God's their buddy.
Right.
Like, that's not I don't think so.
No, I appreciate what they're trying to get across.
Right.
But there is still some, like, if you were in his presence,
Yeah.
I can tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I know what happened in the Bible. You know,
Exactly.
these guys were on their face.
On their face.
Right.
Well, you
And-
think about like John, who was, I would say, when Jesus was here on earth, it was his best friend. I mean, you got the 12, then you had the 3, and then John was.
Sure.
But
At
when
least that's what John said.
Yeah. But when John saw Jesus in heaven in the book of Revelation, he fell on his face as he was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a big difference when you stand, like you said, you stand before God.
Well, standing before God reveals just how inadequate we are.
Right, yeah.
And that's where kind of fear is like, whoa, I'm not worthy.
Right.
And
That's
it's
right.
a very humiliating, not humiliating, but a humbling thing to think about.
Yeah.
That, you know, here in this world, we might think we're something in our little circles and maybe at work, or, you know, I've worked my way up. And so we think that we're something.
Yeah.
But in light of who God is, wow, I'm nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
No. And plus, you see your, in a sense, dirtiness or sinfulness
exactly.
compared to His holiness.
Absolutely.
And yeah, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do except for fall on your face.
No.
So-
Woe is me, for I'm undone.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, that's what Isaiah said, as the Brits say.
Isaiah.
So, oh, man, my screen just went off. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's start off here. What do we got? Number
So first
one.
of all, we are commanded to fear God. Is what you got here. We got a couple of verses to back that up.
We're commanded to fear God, and I think we understand this. You know, we're commanded to fear. So here's the other thing before we get to these verses. A lot of people will think fearing the Lord is an Old Testament concept, and that grace is a New Testament concept.
Yeah.
In fact, grace was in the Old Testament a little bit, and fear the Lord is actually a very New Testament concept, as we're going to find out. But why don't, of course, the verses that we have right here at the start are Old Testament. But, okay, go ahead with Proverbs 23:17, babe. What do we have here?
Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all the day long.
So don't envy sinners. Yeah, we're going to come across the verse that says, I don't want to jump way ahead of myself here, but we do have a verse that the fear of God makes you like hate sin. You know, of course, I didn't say exactly like what I just said, but it makes you hate sin. So here's one that, not your hind, envy sinners. And what do we mean by envy sinners?
You want what they have. You want their life. You want their
Right.
to live like they do.
Right. Well, because we have two different kinds of fear, right? We have the fear of man and we have the fear of God.
Right.
And we'll get into that maybe in just a second here. I don't want to jump way ahead, maybe. But okay, let's get to Deuteronomy 10:12 before we get in trouble here.
And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee, but to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul.
That sounds like a very New Testament type of...
does.
Right. It sounds like the last verse we're going to end the show with here, but this is all he requires of thee, but to fear the Lord and to walk in his ways and to love him. All those things are connected, by the way. It's not like you can have one without the other. It's loving him is fearing him, and serving him and walking in his ways is fearing him and loving him. So all those things are one thing, you know, that to love the Lord is to fear him and to serve him and to walk in his ways. So that's a good passage right there. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by notifications popping up. We got them silenced, but they're still popping up.
No.
So I can't get it off. So anyway, okay. So why don't we move on to number 2?
So what is the fear of God?
Yeah, well, I'm curious what Chuck is like, because he's like, most people are going to say it's like reverence, a reverent fear, and that's basically what we would tend to think of, that God is the supreme being that we have to do. You know, to him we have to give an account to. But you have a little bit more of a nuance.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all.
Right.
I don't disagree with that idea that it.
But you think it takes away from?
I do. I think it distracts a little bit from the idea of what really means to fear God. This God that we serve, that we believe in, he killed people.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't do what he said, and he killed them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Old
You didn't
Testament
follow
and New
his word.
Testament.
Old Testament and New Testament.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't any, there is correction. He's going to correct whenever you do wrong.
Right.
So I believe the crux of the matter is people, us included, before we were Christians, we have to come to understand that we are not in control. Okay, because it's either us who are in control of our life, or it's someone outside of that. In our case, we believe that's Christ. We believe it's God.
Right.
If he's in control, then whatever I'm doing, it is that fear. The fear of God separates us and takes away the fact that I am in control of everything that's going on. Once we actually realize that there is a supreme being, God, in the universe,
Right.
and he is directing my life, and he can any minute in my life, I'm not in control of that. Of course, I could be. I could take my own life.
Right.
But once we realize that, then we begin to live differently.
Sure. Well,
Right.
We're going to get into that real shortly, but
you
yeah.
just made me think of how much God expects us to obey Him, and part of that obedience comes out of fear. Remember when David was bringing the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem, and they put it on a cart, which was not the way God said
Right.
to move it.
Right.
Yep.
But He also told them, "Do not touch it."
Yep.
And someone touched it.
Someone reached out, trying to do a
Do
good,
a good thing. Yep.
to keep it from falling, and as soon as he touched it, boom, he was dead right there.
Well, a lot of people would
And-
say, "Well, that's harsh."
Yeah.
But it don't. No, God is holy, and He has
Yeah.
a very specific way He wants things done, and it's our job to walk in His ways,
Right.
Not make them up,
Right.
And say,
That's-
"Well, He's going to accept my ways." That is the difference between Cain and Abel.
Yeah,
Cain,
that's exactly right.
did it in his ways and tried to get God to accept his ways.
Right.
Abel did what was acceptable to the Lord, and so. But anyway, it's a fear of God. So I had this little analogy, the difference about being afraid and fear. So fear and afraid, they're very, very similar. And that's fear is a very unfortunate word because it has so much of the connotation of being afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
But fear, I was reading a book and they were trying to say that what would be a better word, and they came up with trembling, and I'm like, not so sure if that helps.
Not really.
Because it's it can be good and it can be bad at the same time. And I was like, yeah, that's a tough thing. But so we just have to go with what the Bible says about fear. But I was thinking about, I was talking to my boss about this, and this was really a good analogy. And to fear someone, if you do not fear, you do not care about that person. If you don't have any fear. So think about the people that fear men. Why do we fear men? Because we care about their opinion. We care about what they think about us. They think we care about that they could harm us. So we actually care. That's why we fear men. Well, think about the people that are in rebellion, and think about police. So police have authority. Police are in a position of authority that can do us good and or harm, or they can get us in trouble, or we got ourselves in trouble, but they are in a position of authority, and they should be held in respect, somewhat. And so people who don't care about the police, they're called rebels.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take it another step up. Now, this might get a little touchy for some out there listening, but we got the president of the United States. Now, if Joe Biden were in this room, me personally, I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden, but his position and his authority as president, it would be wow, this is one of the most important people on the face of the earth. I know he doesn't show himself to be that sometimes, but he is, whether we like it or not.
His office.
I would respect that. Now, there's some out there that don't care. So they disrespect. They don't show any honor to that position.
Yeah.
They don't fear him in that way. So see, they're like, well, why would I be afraid of him? Well, no, you don't fear the position. You don't fear his authority. You don't fear the president. And so if you respect the position of authority, you will fear. So take that up another notch of authority. God.
Yeah.
He's the supreme authority. He is the authority. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who do not care to serve God. They don't care what he says. So they don't fear him.
No.
But if we care...
Primarily, they look at themselves as that position. They replace God with themselves as the supreme authority for my life.
Absolutely. But if I care, and I do, and we should, I care what he thinks about me. I care what he wants for my life. I care what his opinions are. So just the opposite of the men pleaser is like, I'm afraid that this person might harm me in some way, or have physical damage. Well, so could God.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that this person might reject me. Well, so could God.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that this person might think ill of me. Well, so could God. So why do we fear God? Why do we fear men? We should fear God.
Right.
And by believing him and still having that fear, it motivates us to serving and to love.
So
and
would you say an aspect of fear is respect?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's at the cornerstone of all this, but there are other little points like Chuck was pointing out. I don't disagree with that, because there are points where you downright better be afraid, because he's coming down with judgment. And if you're not a believer, you better be afraid. You better be fearful of God.
We have a verse. I don't think we have it in our list, but it's Hebrews 10:31. It says, "It is a fearful thing to fall into to the hands of a living God."
Right.
Yeah.
So
I know that what's his face preached it, and it was
Sinners in the hands of an angry God.
God. Right. And,
it's Jonathan Edwards.
right. Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan
Yeah.
Edwards.
So that was the thing that we were discussing about. If you don't fear, then you don't care. And so when I put it like that, it starts to click. Like, okay, fear is a respect, is an honoring. It's connected not just with like I'm scared.
Right.
Even though that might be part of it in some ways. Because I'm telling you, if I'm face to face with God right now, my faith says, I believe he's going to keep his promise and he's not going to smite me right now.
Right.
But man, oh man, to be in the presence of a holy being that is pure and perfect in all of his ways. And who am I?
Yeah.
Right. Well, think about all the stories, and especially the Old Testament, where they met an angel.
Yeah.
Those people were in fear.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
They trembled.
it was.
And what did they have to tell him? Fear not.
Fear not. Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything.
I'm not God.
Chill out.
But yeah.
right.
Just-
Fear not. But there was a reason. I mean, these are beings sent from God. They're not even God.
Right.
And if an angel came to visit one of the mighty angels,
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Are you for us or against us?"
Yeah,
right.
like Joshua, or I'm sorry, not Joshua, Gideon, where he saw the angel and he said, "Whose side are you on?"
Right.
Because he knew there was something about him that had that presence where he's like, "This is a bad dude. I hope he's on our side."
Absolutely. So fear of God but the opposite of fear would be rebellion. We talked about that. I don't care. If you care, then you're going to fear. Fear of God versus fear of damnation. So the people getting the idea though to be afraid of God, like he's going to judge me. So he's going to send me to hell if I do something wrong. Well, that is a proper fear.
Right. Yeah.
And that's usually what drives us to get saved, right? But you should have that fear that this pure and holy God can send you to hell.
Yeah.
Now, once we're saved, we don't have that fear. I don't have that fear, at least, that he's going to send me to hell. But it's still, I have a fear of the Lord. I don't have that fear, the judgment fear that he's going to judge me to hell.
You should have a fear of chastisement.
I
Yes.
say chastisement, not
Yeah.
punishment, because
Right.
he took our punishment,
Yes.
but he will
Yeah.
chastise us.
Or you think of like when you were little, your dad was a fearful character.
Sure.
So
How do you know?
Well, I mean,
You know,
I'm thinking from my experience, he could bring down judgment.
He could.
And it could be painful at times.
That's right.
But we don't. I mean, we don't walk around every day being afraid
Right.
of
Right.
God, because once you have the fear of God, you learn His character.
Yes.
Right.
And you know that He cares. Not only do you care, He cares. He cares a lot for you.
Yep.
And so you don't walk around afraid, but you do walk around. You should live your life in such a way to be concerned that you're going to displease Him.
Absolutely.
That You're
Yeah.
going to do things that are going to make Him disappointed.
Well, that just happens in any relationship.
Right.
Like I don't live in fear with Sarah. But the goal is to get to know them more and more. And as I do, I walk in that fear. And there's a lot of verses we'll get into here shortly that talk about fear and love at the same time, and fear and joy, and these fear is good. And so we're not making this up. This is what the Bible says.
Yeah.
So if fear of the Lord and fear of God is good, then I want to have this in my life. I don't want to ignore this. And I think a lot of people just ignore it because it sounds bad to the ear, like to fear, and they're mixing it up with being afraid. And I don't think we need to be afraid. We can come to His throne boldly.
Yeah.
We can have access, and we can talk to our Father. But there is that who He is and His being is so much far above us that we need to fear Him. Okay, so we have Proverbs 16:6.
It says, by mercy and truth, iniquity is purged, and by the fear of the Lord, men depart from evil.
So kind of like what you were talking about earlier, the fear of the Lord does something to us.
Right.
It motivates us to do some things, and we're going to find out all these things. And like, oh, so now we have to do things? You don't have to,
No,
but if you don't have the fear of God, then you don't care.
Yeah.
But because you care about what God wants, you're going to fear Him, and these are some of the things that will happen if you fear the Lord. You will depart from evil. That is just well, not a promise, but it is a proverb.
Cause and effect.
Yes, cause and effect.
Or to say they go hand in hand for sure. So
Yeah.
Okay, so how about the very first chapter and very first verse of Job?
Oh yeah.
There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil.
He eschewed evil. I like eschewed.
Yeah.
But,
How would you like to be from Uz?
I know,
That
right?
sounds cool, huh?
I'm from Uz.
All right.
There was Uz and
They didn't really get
they
creative with their names. Uz and but he was one that feared God and eschewed evil. So that's connecting them.
Yep.
You fear God, you eschew evil. So the question would be, do you fear evil? Do you embrace it? Do you walk on that line? Or if you fear God, you should fear evil. You not fear evil, depart from evil. Okay, like I said, this is New Testament ideas too. Well, we haven't gotten to one.
We're getting there. Well,
Okay, but
I mean,
what
other
about-
than the one I read, but that's
a good
That's
point.
true.
ahead, so.
Yeah.
Proverbs 9:10.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding.
I think this is what the verse that most people think
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
When you think about the fear of the
Yeah.
Lord, you're like, that's the beginning of wisdom.
That's the first thing I said when you
right.
said the subject. So
That was the first thing you thought of?
was this verse?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. So the beginning of the fear of the Lord is the beginning. You want to be wise, you start right there.
Yeah.
Because it's stupid not to. You're honestly.
Well, the contrast to that is another verse that says, "A fool has said in his heart, there is no God."
Right.
So if you don't know God, you're not going to have wisdom because that's the fear. Knowing God and knowing the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
Yep.
But if
Yeah.
you don't, and you say there is no God, then you become fool.
That's right. Okay, babe, what do we have next here? Psalm 111:10.
Which says the same thing, basically, so we can go on to Proverbs.
Wow, we're just going to move on.
1:7.
Okay, 1:7.
It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction.
Yeah.
So it's the same as beginning of knowledge and wisdom, and which is pretty important things. All right.
And then next we have Proverbs 8:13. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate.
So this is another one that points out to hate evil. And like we have 21 pages here of
Yeah.
notes of scripture. And we could just sit here and read all these scriptures right here of the fear of the Lord and how it's good for us. But we're not. You could do your own search on that. It's a good search to do because I thought it was pretty edifying. But yeah, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, arrogancy, and the evil way. Because when you do fear the Lord, you do care about what He thinks about you, and you fear of Him, then when you imagine yourself, standing in the presence of God, there's no arrogance, there's no pride, because if you think you're something, you're nothing. You're nothing. You're sin. To think that you think, thank goodness it's been forgiven because I am worthy of death and I'm not worthy to be in His presence. It's only by His grace that He allows us to be in His presence.
I think when we get there, we're going to have a greater understanding of what that is. I mean, I think of like Adam and Eve when they sinned and they stood before God. There was nothing they could do.
Right.
They knew they were guilty. And they knew the punishment, and there was nothing. There's no defense. There's nothing. I think we're going to be the same way to stand there. Other than if you're in Christ, you do have His blood that was shed on your behalf.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's just because you're going to be open and bare before God, and
You can't hide.
you can't hide. And there's nothing you can hide, and you're going to be standing there trembling
Yeah.
and in fear.
That's why I didn't like trembling.
Yeah.
I don't like trembling. Okay.
Shaking in your boots.
So it means that if we're okay with sin, then we must not fear God.
If you are at that place,
that's
now we use this quote later on in the show when we do the marriage segment, but because we did that first, recorded it. But we talked about this a little bit that, Martin Luther was, I forget the quote because we read it. It was a long quote, and they were talking about how the fear of the Lord does things. But if we don't fear the Lord, if we don't hate sin, not only does it not hate sin, but you despise it. It's not like you just, I want to turn away from it, but you actually despise it. And I've experienced that in some areas of my life, but there are a couple areas where I'm like, why do I not despise this thing?
Yeah.
Is it just there and I like to maybe play around with it just a little bit? Do I not have a good fear of the Lord? And it's a good thing to meditate on.
Yeah,
And so to answer your question, like if we, what was your question again? Like,
If we're okay with sin,
if we're okay with sin, then we have no fear of God, because to fear God is to eschew sin, is to hate sin,
evil.
Yeah.
so that is.
I think
that's
it goes
something to
back
think about,
to what you said. You don't care.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sad.
Yeah.
Think about that. The creator of the universe who comes down and loves you and wants to give his son for you and to pay the penalty, and you don't care.
Yeah.
Well, and you talk about non-Christians out there, and they don't care about God, but you just think about Christians and how many of us, are okay with sin. We kind of dabble around or whatever, and it's like that's.
But we take it for
how
granted.
Can that be okay?
And we live in the age of grace, and so a lot of us will pump ourselves up, and rightly so. Where it's just grace, 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 and I'm all for grace. I'm not mocking it. I love grace, but there is that like we could take it for granted and be like, oh, I sinned today. Thank goodness God forgave me.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, dude, you sinned.
Yeah.
Against the holy God, and I'm not saying you need to. Beg, get on your knees and ask for forgiveness and, pay penance. But it's like, you should think about why you did that.
Yeah.
Do you not have a fear of God? Do you not have a hate for that sin? And it does motivate you to walk in his ways. So
I remember as a teenager, I remember somebody saying one time that, that basically allowing sin in their life, they were saying, well, God will forgive me.
right.
Wow.
How do you,
Yeah,
how does
yeah,
that
that's
thought process?
that's
I'm
no
not getting
fear.
that thought process.
Right.
There's definitely no fear there.
Well,
fear.
that's. Well, I was going to get in philosophical, but that's what Paul. You read Romans chapter 6, where Paul said, "What shall we say? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound?"
Right.
God forbid.
Yeah.
God forbid.
Yeah.
No.
So we established that we are commanded to fear God. We've talked about what it is to fear God and then why.
Why?
So why should we?
Okay,
fear
so
God?
here we're just going to have a bunch of Bible verses, but we're just going to highlight and we'll give the reference, I guess, for people to go back and look,
Yeah.
but what it actually says. So, for example, I'll read the first one. It says Deuteronomy 6:24, and the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. So what we're going to, it's for our good.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the fear of the Lord is for our good.
Right.
Okay, so that's kind of how we're going to do it. And so in Psalm 25:14,
It says the secret of the Lord is with them that fear him.
right, the secret of the Lord. That's interesting. That's a interesting concept. Okay, Psalm 33:18.
The eye of the Lord is upon them that fear him.
Ooh, think about that. That could go both good and bad, right?
Yes.
But the eye of the Lord,
I want God
the center.
watching me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. No, Psalm 34:7.
The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him.
Now think about that. I mean, who doesn't want angels, circling around them,
Right.
protecting them and, all that. And that sounds
Right,
cool,
yeah.
but only those that fear the
Yeah.
Lord.
Then Psalm 85:9 says his salvation is nigh them that fear him.
Now, obviously, this is, the Psalms, and
Right.
we have salvation through faith,
Yeah.
by the faith that we have in Christ Jesus, but is nigh them that fear him. If you fear the Lord, It should motivate you to get saved. I
Yes,
mean,
it should.
Yes, it should. Because
I think that's where part of what it means when it says it's the beginning of wisdom.
Well,
when you start to fear, you begin to realize, hey, I need to get saved.
Well, this is the difference between being fearful, or not fearful, but having fear of the Lord and being afraid of the Lord. Whereas some people get religious, and because they're afraid of the Lord, they're afraid to approach Him.
Right.
And so they come up with religious things to do.
Yeah.
Hence
Try to
the
get
Catholic
themselves,
Church.
try to correct themselves, their own errors before they can approach God. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And they do all these prayers and they do all these things, but they never actually approach Him. But you fear the Lord, you're going to give yourself to Him.
Right.
A relationship. You have you know Him. You want to get to know Him. So that's a subtle difference there. Where are we at?
So next is Psalm 103:11. Great is His mercy toward them that fear Him.
Is mercy. So that seems like, here's the paradox. If you fear Him, but He has mercy for you that fear Him. So it's a very interesting. So fear isn't always that thing that we think of as being afraid and scared.
And then Psalm 103:17 says, the mercy of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting upon them that fear Him.
So mercy again, but it's from everlasting to everlasting. So we have great confidence that His mercies is going to endure forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then Psalm 145:19, He will fulfill the desire of them that fear Him. He also will hear their cry and will save them.
Now, I can't read this verse without thinking of the song, but there's a song that Shane does. But He fulfills the desire of them that fear Him and hears their cry and will save them. Think about that. Yeah.
Psalm 147:11, the Lord taketh pleasure in them that fear Him.
Now, okay, so this brings up an interesting point. Like, okay, the reason why I want to obey God, the reason why I want to serve Him and fear Him, in fact, is because I want to please Him.
Right.
Now, that begs the question, can I please Him more than, am I more pleasing than I'll ever be? Can I be more pleasing to God, basically?
Well, I would say probably yes, based on your obedience. That's what
I don't know. I think that we're accepted already.
Well, we're accepted, but it's just like your kids, I guess. If they're being rebellious and disobedient versus not, then it's more pleasing to you when they're not.
Well, right. I'm talking about believers.
Right.
So the ones that are. But I'm saying that, okay, in God's eyes, He's looking down. He's cleansed us. He's forgiven us. So we're accepted in the beloved.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think we can be pleasing any more to Him than He's already made us. He's made us pleasing. But from our perspective, our motivation is to please.
Yeah, right.
And do what He wants us to do, is to do what the Father wants.
Well,
because that's the natural.
But we still go back to the idea that it's the relationship that God desires. So it's the relationship. So to be pleasing to Him, could we have a better relationship with Him? Because I think that would be more pleasing.
I think we can have a better relationship. That's for sure, because that's called growth.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope I have a better relationship than I first started.
Right. So I
Same
would
thing with
think
my
as
wife.
that relationship improves, that it would become more pleasing because He sees us growing.
Right.
I think. So I would say yes.
Well, He takes pleasure in that.
Right.
Maybe that's the way to put it.
Yeah.
He
Right,
takes
yeah.
pleasure in that. Okay. So He takes pleasure in them that fear Him.
And then Psalm 128:1 says, blessed is everyone that feareth the Lord.
So
if
you're
you want to be
blessed. So this is just a handful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally a handful. We could have come up with more. So blessed is everyone that feareth the Lord and that walks in His ways. So yeah, those are just a few. Okay, we're getting short on time, so let's move on to number 4 here.
Number 4 is love and fear go together.
Okay, so this is where I was trying to say that to love is to fear, and to fear is to love. And people are like, that seems like a paradox,
Contradiction.
right?
Paradox.
Yeah.
That's-
Especially when the first verse contradicts you there.
Yes. So in 1 John 4:18, we are in the New Testament.
says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love.
Okay, so this is where the verse that people would say, well, here, this is why we're not supposed to fear. And that is true. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. But they go back and forth. This is talking about that being afraid of, fear, that being afraid. That is not the good fear that we have. That is a bad fear. We're afraid of the fear of man, the fear of consequences, the fear of all that. We have not been drawn near to that. We are drawn out of that, and so now we have perfect love.
Yeah, I think of Andrew and Enos, the growing up in the Amish faith. They had a fear of God.
Yes.
That was, brought into them was the fear of God, but they never felt like they were good enough.
Right.
Because the relationship wasn't there. So the perfect love didn't exist to them because they never were good enough to be able to come to God. But the fear, the afraidness was there. So I kind of look
And
at
nor
John
could they
4:18.
ever be good enough.
No, they weren't going to be good enough.
That's
You
the
got to get to the
promise.
point when, you got to die.
That's right. So 2 Timothy 1:7, here we have, what does this one say?
For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
So God has not given us that spirit of fear, but we respect and fear him.
Right.
But he's given us one of power and love and a sound mind. So, okay, we've kind of bust through some of these verses, and I apologize, but honestly, all you have to do is go to your concordance, go to a Bible program, search fear, and start there, and then go through some of these, and it is really edifying. I'm sure there's some websites that have isolated all these, the fear of God,
Probably, yeah.
and you could figure that out. But here we have some conclusions. So some verses we have in conclusion
Well, it's
is
just this one is the conclusion. These are because you said we didn't really have New Testament verses. So I was
let's read those first.
Let
Okay, we
me-
got 2 Corinthians 7:1.
It says, having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God.
So the fear of God, in the fear of God, we cleanse ourselves of all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. Wow, that sounds like we're actually doing something.
Well-
not to attain anything, but go ahead.
I was going to say who he's writing to. It's Christians, the
Right.
church,
Yeah.
Right,
the
right.
church at Corinthian.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, they should cleanse themselves.
We're not doing this for salvation.
Right. Yeah, it's not a salvation issue.
This
It's
is
a,
growing.
Yeah.
And because we fear the Lord, and because, like we were talking
Because
about
we
earlier, I
eschew
care.
evil.
Right.
You change.
I don't want evil. I despise evil. And so therefore, I'm perfecting holiness. Okay, 1 Peter 2:17.
It says, honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king.
Yep. Okay. Fear God.
There you
We
go.
just had to throw a couple New Testament ones in there. In Revelation 14:7, saying with a loud voice, "Fear God,
Yep.
and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come, and worship Him that made heaven and earth, and the sea and the fountains of water." That is, that's it.
Well, and
The-
if somebody doesn't think that the New Testament has the fear of God, you have to read Acts and see
Oh,
when,
yeah.
after Pentecost, and it says
Yeah.
great fear fell on all the
Yeah.
people. Look
Right.
at Ananias and
So-
Sapphira.
yeah.
I'm like, there's some stuff happening. So I'm like, no, they,
yeah, could you imagine being there and seeing that? And being like,
right.
talk about putting the fear of God in you.
Okay.
Yeah, that would do it, right?
So yeah, definitely fear there.
Absolutely. So now what do
All
we
right,
have?
Mike. So let's hear the conclusion of the whole
What is
matter.
The whole
Yeah.
conclusion of the matter. It sounds familiar. Let me get back to here. Okay, we have is Ecclesiastes 12:13, which is actually kind of quoted somewhere else too. Go ahead, read it.
Okay, it says,
That's the Westminster Confession.
Sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's what you're referring to. But.
Somewhat, but I thought there was another verse. But this,
maybe.
it's the Westminster Confession says it a little bit differently.
does, yeah.
But it's the same concept.
Yeah, the chief end of man.
Is to
What?
glorify God,
Yeah.
to worship Him forever.
Yeah,
and
something like that.
Or to But anyway,
okay, so this says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
That's
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes 12:13.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So fear God and keep His commandments. That's the whole. I thought there was another verse right that you had with it that was basically the same thing. But I'm not going to find it in all these 22
No,
pages.
you're not gonna
That's
find
what I was
it
trying
there.
to find and scrolling through. I cannot find it. I have no idea where it is. But
Well, you think about how many verses there are about fear and fearing the Lord, fearing
A
God.
lot.
That's a lot. So obviously that was extremely important.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
no,
God's
like-
trying to tell us something.
even like when we talk about faith, and like Hebrews 11:7, it says, "By faith Noah, being warned of God of those things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his household, by the which he condemned the world and became heirs of righteousness, which is by faith." So even in the faith chapter, we have he was moved by fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because he cared, and I like that way that's worded, that we care. And so I don't know. We were listening to a guy. I don't remember exactly how he compared it, the fear.
Yeah.
And we were listening to so much and read so much, but it was very encouraging. And I would encourage people to go through some of these passages on the fear of God, because there's blessings that are attached with this. There are things that, hey, I need to check myself. And I know we live in the age of grace and nothing matters, but if that is your heart, you don't fear God. You don't care. You're like, I get away with whatever. I don't care. God's going to forgive me, or whatever the mantra you have is like, whatever, I'm already forgiven. And I'm just enjoying I'm just enjoying God. Well, do you have a lack of fear? And to fear God is to eschew evil, to despise evil, to turn away from evil, to hate evil, and to love God. And that's connected. Fear and love of God is connected. You love God because of who he is. And so
the more you love God, it makes you fear him. Like, it's not like I try to fear him. I love him. And the more I love him, the more I do fear him. I respect him. I realize his power the more I get to know him through his word.
Because
like,
you know who he
together.
is more.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, wow.
But it's not a scary thing. It's a wonderful thing. But it does grow. They grow together.
Well, that reminds me of the story, and it's in here in the note somewhere. But Moses brings the people to the mountain. And Moses is excited because they're going to hear from God.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to be the go-between anymore. And they bring everyone to the mountain, or the 70 elders come to the mountain, and there's thunderings and lightning, and Moses is excited. He's loving it, and everyone else is afraid.
Yeah, they're
Terrified.
terrified.
They're afraid.
Yeah.
So why? Moses knew God,
Yes,
he did.
and the people didn't. And so they were afraid of what was going on, even though in human eyes, all the lightnings and thunderings, and I would probably be like, what's going on? I'm out of here. But this was God speaking to them, and they couldn't handle it. And they said, we don't want God to speak to us. We want you to speak for us. Speak to God for us. That's a shame. You know, so don't be afraid of God, but understand who he is. And in understanding, you will fear him and you will walk in his ways and love him. Those are connected.
Yeah.
The Mike Charleston Show.
History with Larry.
All right, Larry.
Alrighty.
All
Here
right.
we are.
So hopefully you got something for us that's exciting and
It
challenging.
is. I think so. It's a little different. but,
Maybe historical.
It is.
I
Actually,
can guess
yes,
that
very
history
good.
event in 2 minutes.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, I titled this "The Artist That Became an Inventor."
Oh, well, I can see
Because
how
when
that
I
could
was
happen.
reading this, I didn't know that this person was an artist.
Did you know I was an artist?
I did.
Oh, okay.
But-
most people don't
yeah,
know
most
that.
people don't know that.
I'm not a
Yeah.
very good artist. Not anymore.
Well, it just takes practice.
Yeah, it does.
So Sam, this is our man. He was born on April 27th in 1791.
Whoa, a day
Yeah.
before Rebecca was born.
Yeah, actually, the day before my dad. His birthday was April 26th.
Oh, wow.
In
How about that?
1949. Anyway, that's it. So Charleston, Massachusetts.
Oh, what a
Yeah.
wonderful town.
I think so. I don't know. Never been there. And
Charlestown, right?
Charleston.
Is it Charleston?
No, I'm sorry, Charlestown. Yep,
Right.
sorry, Charlestown, Massachusetts.
Right.
You got me confused.
Yeah, it's all right.
And he was the son of a congregational clergyman
Okay.
and also a geographicer. Never heard of that word, but it's actually just someone who studies geography. And but they also,
Why can't I get paid for that?
I know, they also do like part of geography is map making. That's
Okay,
a
sure. Yep.
cartographer. But anyway,
Cartographer?
yeah, that's what
Cartographer?
cartographer. Yeah, I can't talk. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway. But Sam started his educational program
Sure.
in Phillip Academy in Andover, Massachusetts.
I don't know if that's still in existence.
I don't know, but he also, after a short stint there, because he wasn't the best student, but his parents sent him to Yale.
Oh, well, that's
Yale
still in
College.
existence, yes.
Back then it was called Yale College, but we know it today as Yale University
Sure.
in New Haven,
They make
Connecticut.
locks, right?
They make locks?
Yeah. Like for your door locks?
Maybe.
The Yale locks.
Oh, the Yale locks. Is that what they're famous for? It's a locksmith school?
That's a locksmith school.
But like I said, he wasn't the best student, but he had two main interests. Art, which of course we already said that.
Sure.
The other was a new field of study at the time, electricity.
Oh,
Which is kind of weird to think that was
Wow.
a new field of study, because electricity is part of our life. But those were things that he was drawn to. But
I see what you did there.
yeah, but his parents weren't happy about his art, because he kind of tried
Most parents aren't.
he pursued that. But he did graduate from Yale.
Okay.
And he worked as a clerk for a Boston publishing company, but he just didn't really fit in. But so his parents did help him go to England to study art, and he was.
He had to go to England to study art.
Well, yeah, because he did
Cambridge?
English. Well, because
Cambridge. Did he go to Cambridge?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But
Somewhere in England.
he studied art in England. He did like the artistic standards they had of the historical
English are
style
great.
of art, like the romantics.
Sure.
The romanticism and the way they portrayed the hero in the foreground with bright colors, things like that. He was fascinated by it. But he also liked to do portraits.
Sure.
So after he came back, he started doing portraits to make a living.
Sure.
And he was poor for a while.
Because he's an artist. That's why.
Yeah. But he became very good at it, and he became very famous. He was, in fact, one of the most well-known painters of the time in America. He was probably one of the finest artists at the time.
But yet you didn't know this guy was an artist.
I did not.
Okay.
And you probably didn't know it either.
Probably not.
Maybe you might have. But so he was poor, and he had to do some painting, make a living and stuff. But he also had the ability to associate with a wide range of people, whether poor or
So he was
wealthy.
charismatic.
Yeah, he was sociable.
Well, I mean, he was-
and I think because of his upbringing, and going to college and having that experience,
Sure.
he could relate to wealthy people, intellectuals, religion, politics. You might be able to say that, he was probably one of the original, most interesting man.
Ah, okay.
As you say, stay thirsty, Sam.
Are we talking about Sam Adams now?
No.
Okay.
But on a trip, so he taught at a college in New York. I don't remember the name of it, but he taught art. He went to Europe to study art again. On the trip back, he was reading about this new device called an electromagnet. That it's a magnet, you put electric charge to it, and it increases the strength of the magnet.
Sure.
I thought that was fascinating. That trip kind of changed his life. He was really, you could say he was really amped about it.
My goodness.
wow.
And the current of his life was changing.
See what you did there.
So he had this idea of using electricity to use it to transmit information.
Well, okay. Now I know who this is.
So he, after many trials and testings and stuff, he got his device up and running, and he was able finally to convince Congress that this was an important device, and they erected the first long-distance line from Boston to Washington, D.C. We know it today as the telegraph.
Right.
Samuel F.B. Morse.
Yep.
The Morse code.
The Morse code.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
but I never knew he was an artist, and a well-known, famous artist at that.
I would not have known that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I would know that, but yeah.
It's like, well, why isn't that part of his, story that we only know him from the telegraph and the Morse code? Which another interesting thing, it wasn't long after the telegraph that the telephone came along.
Yeah, they're kind of part and parcel, it seems. It just happened to come.
So many things happened so fast after that it's just like the telegraph, the telephone, then television.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, baby steps.
Baby steps.
Things change
A lot
rapidly.
of tell is in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
So-
interesting. It made me think of Jeremiah because I was thinking, how does art and electricity go together?
Oh, well.
And when he was young, all his drawings would be like these wires going here. And it's just like, people don't draw like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the story. A brief story of Samuel Morse.
Samuel
And in fact,
Morse.
Today, what's today's date? January 11th
11th, maybe?
was the anniversary of his first transmission.
Oh, wow. What did he say?
Wow.
Well, I don't know, but his
Oh,
first
okay.
one on the long distance one from Boston to Washington.
That was long distance?
Yeah, back then. I mean,
Right.
that was a real long distance. I think up until that point, the longest distance, because there was some dispute over his invention.
Sure.
Because somebody else had a similar device.
Let me guess. He said, one giant step for man. No.
Actually, the message was, "What hath God wrought?"
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
an interesting thing. But yeah, somebody else at the time, they had a similar invention, like I said, but they were only able to get it very short distance, not even
Isn't
a
it
mile.
funny how inventions like come out right about the same time?
Yeah.
Like these people were figuring it out together. Like, was word getting out? They didn't even have Twitter back
no,
then.
there's a theory about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's kind of gets into mystical things and stuff. But
Wow.
when you have a thought, you have one, somebody else in another place might have the same thought at the same time. And
I was just thinking there was espionage.
Yeah.
That's all. They were just stealing ideas.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, Samuel Morse, the artist and the inventor
Yeah,
of the
cool.
telegraph.
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. And the Morse code. Yeah.
That's right.
The Mike Charleston Show. Music with Sarah.
What song do you like?
All right, babe. This week's Song of the Week, before we get started on this Song of the Week, actually, while we were preparing for this week, I was reading a book about the fear of God, the fear
Right.
of the Lord.
Yep.
Actually, the title is, what is the title again?
It's What Does It Mean to Fear the Lord by
and it's written
Michael
by
Reeves.
Michael Reeves. I want to give credit where credit is due. But as I was reading this, I came upon this segment, and this passage, and I figured we would do it for this segment because of this is the Song of the Week. So why don't you go ahead and just read this passage? It's about a minute, so go ahead.
The fear of God is a matter of the heart. How easily can we mistake the reality of the fear of God for an outward and hollow show, as Martin Luther said? To fear God is not to fall upon your knees. Even a godless man and a robber could do that. Scripture presents the fear of God as a matter of the heart's inclinations. So read Psalm 112, verse 1. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, that greatly delights in his commandments. The one who fears the Lord is not one who grudgingly attempts the outward action of keeping the Lord's commandments. The one who truly fears the Lord greatly delights in God's commandments. In other words, fear runs deeper than behavior. It drives behavior. Sinful fear hates God and therefore acts sinfully. Right fear loves God and therefore has a sincere longing to be like him. The fear of God is a biblical theme. It stops us from thinking that we are made for the passionless performance or a detached knowledge of abstract truths. It shows that we are made to know God in such a way that our hearts tremble at his beauty and splendor. It shows that entering the life of Christ involves the transformation of our very affections so that we begin actually to despise and not merely renounce the sins we once cherished and treasure the God we once abhorred. This is why singing is such an appropriate expression of a right fear. Clap your hands, all peoples, cry the sons of Korah in Psalm 47. Shout to God with loud songs of joy, for the Lord Most High is to be feared. In fact, the fear of the Lord is the reason Christianity is the most song-filled of religions. It is the reason why from how Christians worship together to how they stream music, they're always looking to make melodies about faith. Christians instinctively want to sing to express the affection behind their words of praise, stir it up, knowing that words spoken flatly will not do in worship to this God.
Yeah, and I figured I was reading that, and I had to read that to you because I know how you feel about singing and praising, and then kind of the reason why we even do this segment of the Song of the Week is to bring attention to that. And I as I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, we as Christians sing a lot compared to other religions. I don't know what they sing, but I don't do it as much.
Yeah, well, and when they say the part about like words spoken flatly wouldn't do, when you think about the greatness of God and all that he's done, you feel like you can't just say it. Like sometimes you do just want to sing it and sing it with expression and
Sure.
life. So
I just never thought about how the fear of the Lord is an impetus to singing, and that's interesting. I mean, it's his opinion, and I don't know how true it is, but it sounded good. Okay, so the specific song, is a very, very obscure song. We were bumping around the internet, I don't know, some 15 years ago.
maybe
10, 15 years ago, found this obscure website, Christ Our Life, from Canada, right?
Right. Yep.
So it's christourlife.ca or something
Yes.
like that?
Yes.
Yeah, christourlife.ca. I don't know anything about this group, so if they're cultish or something, I don't know. But,
but they make good music.
We had our kids' friends came over one time, and they were surprised that we knew these songs. because they knew him. They're up there in Minnesota, near Canada.
Right.
But anyways, this song is called "Show Your Kindness" by Christ Our Life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all their music is really good. But this song I don't know, kind of has been on my heart lately because it's something that I think about. I think about revival. I'm not talking about like some great revival, or even though that'd be cool too, but I just think in my own life and in my own community, my family, my church, and I pray for a revival. And it starts with Jesus, come revive us, bring your breath and give us life. Send your word to us, soul and spirit to divide. And then the chorus says, Lord, revive us, purify us, living word, come pierce our hearts, show your kindness and lead us to repentance. And I feel like when we do read the Bible, we do learn more of the heart of God and how he wants me to live. And so I find it very, they're great words to sing. They're words that get in your heart.
It's kind of based on that, the goodness or the kindness of God lead us to repentance, and so show your kindness, lead us to repentance. And so it's a very short song, and they kind of repeat it a few times, and that's kind of their mode. They're just short, simple songs. And in fact, if you go and look for this one, I know on Spotify it's available, but we found, I don't know how we could post this or where you could find this, but the live version is it's not as a great recording, but you can sing that you could see how they sing with all their gusto, and so anyway, but that's how we found it. And then they went to a studio, and it's fine, but we always liked the live version of it. And I don't know where you could find that, but
it used to be on their website, and today I was on there and I didn't see it anywhere, so all I have is it's on our computer.
I'm sure you could find it somewhere, because they do have the chords, so you could play the song and all the songs that they have, but it's a confusing website, so I don't know if it's easy. Maybe they updated it since I've looked at it.
It's been updated, and it's actually very nice because they have all the songs, and then they have the lyrics, so you can click and download just the lyric sheets if you want that, or the chord sheets. And so for people like us that want to play it, that's really convenient. And then the second verse says, "Come and change us so our lives reflect your life." And I love that because I feel like that's my heart. That's my prayer, is that I want my life to reflect who he is.
Sure.
So anyway,
absolutely.
beautiful song.
No, it's a simple song. We've sung it in church a few times in the past, and just a quick little song about, hey, every once in a while, it's like we check ourselves. Are we? Am I doing well? Do I need to be revived in some way? And so it's always I get it. Some people don't like revival type songs because I don't need to be revived. Well, whatever.
Those are probably the people who need to be.
Probably.
But anyway, that's
so
okay.
Anyway, that's this week's song. Go check it out on Spotify or YouTube, or good luck trying to find the live version, but it is on Spotify, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The Mike Charleston Show.
Marriage.
All right, babe. So the marriage moment here, this is going to be a little different. We got an email, and I thought, well, let's talk about this a little bit, because it's kind of a confusing email, but because we're not privy to
the backstory,
right?
Yeah.
So this gentleman sent this in, and he made a post, and someone responded to that post, and he gave us a response, and so he wanted our opinion on how we responded, I guess. And so I want to talk about the issue a little bit too. But why don't we go ahead and just read it, and maybe this is his response. And so we'll figure it out as we go along. So I feel like this is like Corinthians, how Paul is like responding to a letter, but we don't know what the questions were. So anyway, let's go ahead.
Mr. and older homeschool Christian dad, I respect your opinion as a fellow believer and elder. In doing so, do not want to rebuke you in an unhonorable fashion.
That's always good.
However, that doesn't require me to agree with everything you believe either, especially if the Bible says otherwise.
Ooh,
2 Timothy.
That's a backslap right there.
2 Timothy 2:15 says, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth."
Okay.
My goal with anything I post is that it is rightly divided. If I don't know the topic or I'm not studied up on the topic, I don't post it.
True.
It would be unprofitable to me or anyone.
Redundant. Okay.
Just because I'm young doesn't mean that God can't speak through me.
That's very true.
Many men who have a pride over their knowledge of the Bible look at me as a yokeling and much to learn and little knowledge. I may still be learning the Bible, but aren't we all? The Bible is of no private interpretation and only held by the elders and elites, but is clear.
I'm wondering if this guy pulled that card out and was like, as an elder or as a whatever, because he's really focusing on this part of it. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's clear and concise to all who study the word. In response to the message about leaving and cleaving, first off, I didn't say when a young man was supposed to leave in my post.
So this is about leaving and cleaving.
Right.
He made a post about leaving and cleaving. Now I don't know where the post is.
Yeah.
I could go and try to figure out which one it was, but I didn't see it.
Right. Several people automatically assumed I meant move out way before marriage. I think there's great value in that, but that is my personal opinion, not what the scripture says. I believe I responded to you once in saying that even you wouldn't encourage your sons to cleave in your home. That
Cleave
requires
in your home. That's weird. Okay. Anyway.
That requires them to leave before the cleaving. I'm dealing with some young men who are being encouraged to get married but stay with their parents. Not good, in my opinion. Second, it says...
Well, what do you mean stay with your parents?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
That's funny because if Chuck's not here, but Chuck, he says, all my sons-in-laws live with their parents. Now, live on their parents' property.
Right.
They don't live with their parents. But
And
anyway.
I don't know if that's what he's meaning. But.
Right.
Second, it says, Genesis 2:24, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. It doesn't say when. It only says it must be done. That means that there is biblical precedent for a man to leave. Now, a young man who leaves...
Well, if that's true, if there's no time frame, then it could be after they're married. It could be 10 years after they married, right?
I mean...
I'm joking, but okay.
Now, a young man who leaves 2 days before getting married would not be in sin. But if we are rational and rightly dividing the scripture, he would also not be in sin if he left when he was 19 or 20 in order to get his spiritual relationship with God solid and prepare for the potential spouse in the future.
Okay, so pause right there. It seems like this gentleman is not the guy writing the email, but the other guy was trying to say that a kid must stay in the home until they get married. I'm surmising that.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, and he's saying it's okay to leave at some point and then cleave to your wife whenever you get a wife. Okay, go on.
So my point is still valid for either case. Third, I'm not here to rewrite scripture or to make people feel guilty. Parents do what they think is best for their kids. If what they do is out of faith, there is no condemnation and it's between them and God. When the young men become men before God, they are at a point of making positive decisions for their future. And the Bible will guide them in that, whether they stay home by faith or leave by faith. Some parents do make it difficult for their kids to make those decisions, but my post was not to call out the parents, but to bring clarity to the young men. On a side note, I have experienced both sides of the issue. I stayed home by faith in honor of my father until my father gave me permission to leave home by my faith. It's not hard to pursue God and let him lead and direct your path if your focus is on him. Now I'm married, and it was the best thing for me to learn and appreciate the respect for my father's home, and also learning to be in charge of my own home. And personally, I wasn't more vulnerable being alone, and I actually grew closer to the Lord, having a close relationship with Jesus on my own.
So I'm guessing the argument being that if you're alone, you're more vulnerable out there. And so he's saying, I wasn't more vulnerable. That's an opinion, I think. But go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll finish the email.
I don't normally type out letters on here because I don't have the time, but I figured you might appreciate my response better if I wrote up my thoughts in a concise manner. I also didn't want a quick response to come across as snarky. Anyways, hope that all makes sense. Some people take my post the wrong way anyway, but I'm posting what would please God, not necessarily what men want to hear. Hope y'all have a happy new year.
Okay, and he said that was in response to a message I received from a homeschool dad who felt that a post I made on leaving and cleaving was irrational. I know there's a lot of missing pieces, but would love you all to consider this a polite yet firm response to an elder brother in Christ. That's a question mark. Is this basically? But would you all consider this a polite yet firm response? Obviously, I don't want to compromise the word of God. Definitely don't want to rebuke an elder in the process. So his question is mainly at this point is not so much the leaving and cleaving, though we could talk about the leaving and cleaving and just how important that is. And I think let's just talk with that issue real quick. Not knowing what he posted, not even knowing what the response is. Just quickly off the top of my head, just for a quick moment here, leaving and cleaving is vital to your marriage. Now, we were talking about this earlier, that doesn't have a time or a place. I would assume that at the marriage, you have to leave and you have to cleave. It is important for the wife to cleave to her husband and the husband to cleave to his wife. But the where and when, not when, but the where.
The address.
Right. Like you could actually have a room in the house and still leave and cleave. That's irrelevant if you move 2,000 miles away or move 2 feet away.
Right.
There are many cultures that do life a little bit differently, and some actually you build on a room, you add on to your father's house or to your mother's house or whatever it is. And you live right next door. Some people, in days gone by, families lived real close to each other. I grew up in a house where we bought a house that was on the property of a family that had lived together. So we kind of broke up the family, I guess. I don't know. But our neighbors, their parents were living in the backyard. Basically, it was acreage there. Mm-hmm. So they were on the back street, but we were the other house, and then we were surrounded by woods. So there was like a triangle of houses. So that's how it was a good bit in the past. So that doesn't matter where. Yeah. It matters how. And parents do have a problem of letting kids go at times, and that is problematic. And I know kids want to leave and cleave with their spouses, or they should.
They should want to. Or they should do it whether they want to or not.
Yes, they should do it. And so parents need to learn to respect that. That doesn't mean you can't be involved with your kids' lives and invite them over. Right. Even, ask about what they're doing, whatever. But it's important to set those boundaries to where you have the authority in your house now, and you need to establish that. And even if they're living in my house, like if we set aside a bedroom, that is off limits. That is not my bedroom. That is their bedroom, their sanctuary, basically, and I need to leave them alone and respect that. But okay, so now back to the question really at hand is, was this a respectful response to an older person? I'm guessing maybe it wasn't a church, maybe it wasn't, maybe I'm not exactly sure. I could take a guess, but I don't. So I don't. This is where it gets very difficult, and I know this is the marriage moment, and we were talking about that part of it, the leave and cleave, but specifically the elders and older people. We want to respect that, even in our marriage. I have parents, you have parents. Yeah, we want to respect them. We may not always agree with them, and they don't interfere in our marriage. At least they try not to. Right. Sometimes they do, and we have grace, and we let them intrude a little bit. But they for the most part, both sets of parents have done well of letting us go. Right. And so the response here is, and so we want to respect the elders. So that's what he's trying to get at. I don't know what the post was. I don't know what the response was, but this response seems fine. I mean, you're clear in what you want to say. You're trying to be, you're using Bible verses to point out your points. I think you're focusing on some points, but like I said, I don't know what the original arguments are. Right. So I don't have a problem with it. You as a young person, and I don't know exactly. I mean, I do know how old he is, but I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's a young man and he's writing this, and so I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this was a fair email to an elder? If you received something from a young lady, would you be offended?
No, but I'm also not very easily offended, but I will say it seems like he's trying to be clear of what, clarifying what he was trying to say with the whole issue. Sure. And so I feel like it was, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I feel like it was respectful.
No, that's fine. And people out there maybe be thinking like, what are you talking about? But the Bible does talk about respect, and there's older people in our lives that we want to entreat as a father. Yeah. And you wouldn't talk to your father a certain way. Maybe you would. I don't know. But we want to respect that. And I think that was fine. You were very respectful. Send the email. Keep the conversation open and see if they respond in kind. Are they as respectful? So anyway, I know that's different of a marriage moment, but the point of that one is to leave and cleave. And parents, we have to let our kids leave and cleave. Right. Honestly.
Yep.
Hey,
This is Joshua Charleston, the producer of The Mike Charleston Show. Thank you for listening to the show. If you want to follow us, we're on Facebook at Mike Charleston Show and Instagram at _Mike Charleston Show. Please support us on Patreon for exclusive content. This episode is over, but if you want more, check out the website at fellowshipofbelievers.org for more information. The Mike Charleston Show has been brought to you by Fellowship of Believers.